Oh man, have I got a fun one for you today. Today we are going to be taking a look at Beast Wars Neo Mach Kick. This is an infamous figure in the Transformers collecting community, and I think you'll see why throughout this video. But yeah, this is another figure from the Beast Wars Neo toy line from Japan, another Beast Wars Neo Maximal, and obviously Mach Kick here turns into a horse, and you know, all things considered, I think it is actually a pretty good horse mode. It has some aspects of it that I don't like, but I think by and large, this is by far the best part about this figure. As you can see, he's got some nice sculpting on here with like horse musculature. He does have some like veins sculpted in all over the body, which I guess technically that's accurate, but it does make me a little bit uncomfortable. I sort of wish that they just left that detail off, but whatever. Real horses have, you know, big protruding veins like that, so it works. He's got an okay looking horse head here. His mane looks kind of big and stupid, and that is because of a gimmick that this toy has, which I think is the most ridiculous in this mode, where if you take this this back section of the mane here and pull it down, you get this like extendo horse head. Come on. That's so stupid. I love it. It's just kind of a funny feature. He does have a claw under here that you can open up, which is not like the bottom jaw of the horse. It's like using the top part of the horse as the top part of the claw, and then just the second bottom claw. And it's just ridiculous. It's really stupid, I think, especially in this mode, but it is a really satisfying mechanism. Like, it springs back and forth really nicely, and I love this whole sort of like, you know, there's probably a name for that mechanism, but this sort of like cross-hatched hinge extension thing. I just love that mechanism. I think it's really cool. And, you know, it doesn't look terrible as a main. It just looks a little bit awkward compared to some other parts of the figure. You've by no doubt noticed by now that the tail is actually a soft goods piece, which is a choice. I think it works well in this mode. It's a little bit annoying in robot mode, and there is more of this contained within the figure. But so far, you know, I think it works well as a horsetail. Obviously, it sits like it would, and you know, it kind of puts him in line with other kind of like My Little Pony type figures. So, you know, pretty typical for horse toys. In terms of articulation, the head can kind of hinge up and down, although it does kind of disjoint itself from the neck. So I don't think it looks good really at all, but it can do that. The front legs here, they're on ball joints at the hips, and then it's got a hinge that goes, you know, about that far in this direction and that far in this direction. I guess this is the direction it would go. So you can get them in some nice kind of like horse poses if you can get them to stand with that going on. You know, it's a good look. And his little hoof here is also on a hinge that goes back and forth. And then for the back legs, nothing at the hips just because of how they plug into the body, but he does have a knee here that goes about that far, and then similarly a little hinge on the hoof as well. So, you know, not a crazy amount of articulation, but it allows you to get pretty much the only pose that you'd want with a horse, really, which is to have his leg up like that. If you can get him to stand while he's doing that, it can be a little bit tricky, but it's not, you know, impossible. He has to lean, you know, kind of awkwardly back to do that, but it works well enough. In terms of comparisons, here he is for the standard one, just with Kingdom Sideswipe. So you can see what the giant horse looks like next to a car. And then here he is with Stampy and Karada, the two that we looked at last time, building out our Beast Wars Neo Maximal team here. And yeah, he looks good with them. I think he really shines the most in horse mode. And yeah, I think you'll understand exactly what I mean once we get onto transformation. So like the other Beast Wars Neo figures, he does have this sort of like tertiary weapons platform mode. I guess let's just get into it before I say anything else about it. So this figure is pretty infamous for being quite annoying to transform because the whole thing is really built around a lot of these big shell sections sitting off on weird sort of like awkward armatures. First thing you really want to do is just separate all the pieces. You want to untab this section down here and just bring it down on this little armature. Bring up the head. that also hooks into these sections. Separate these sections from each other and just leave them out like that. The tail here pegs into the back legs and comes up like that. You can leave the tail on through the transformation, but it's going to fall off inevitably, so let's just take that off to the side for now. And this is, you know, pretty much the what you want to have before you start going to any mode. It's a lot of just like clumsy panels moving around each other, and most of them just like sit off of the robot mode. But to get into this this tertiary mode, you want to gosh, how do you do this? Okay, you want to rotate around. I've only done this mode like once, so you want to rotate this whole back section around like this and kind of double hinge it back like that. You want to, you see, look, he's got more soft goods in here. We'll get to that later. You want to bring that up for now, just so you can bring this armature that the front legs are on and fold that down like this and move the other panels out of the way as you go. Rotate this around so that you can, you want to swivel this section so you can bring it as close to the body as possible, and then take the front legs and they kind of like loop around this back section like this at the knees. Yeah, if you're thinking this doesn't really look like anything yet, you're not going to be, we're not going to change your opinion much. You want to bring the horse head up like this, kind of fold down the head a little bit and open up that claw. And then these side sections, you want to just, gosh, okay, yeah, I guess we have to rotate the waist around. Is that right? Yeah. Oop, there we go. We've ripped him in half. We'll rotate the waist around like this so that these panels can come. Well, you want to rotate the head back in. That will be the robot mode head. You want to rotate it so that these panels can kind of sit around the body like this. They don't tab in or anything. They just sit there. And then for the back legs here, you want to rotate it around at the knee and kind of bring it down like this, bring the bottom section of the leg up on this armature, and it just sits around like that. And then it's got this inner armature that you pull out, and it will make this little feet for it to stand on. So you want to do that on both sides, and then once everything is kind of how it's supposed to be, then you kind of just have to, you know, finagle everything into place, and then bring the head up like that, and then you can tab the horse tail back where it was, and it just kind of lays underneath the whole thing. And there you have Mach Kick in his weapon platform mode. This might be the most visually disturbing one yet, where it's just like this huge amalgamation of random horse parts that are just like gruesomely displayed in this weird sort of like horse head capture claw mode. This is really upsetting. And clearly an afterthought too, because this one does not have any sort of like tooling to make this necessary. I mean, he's got this, but this ends up just being one of his, you know, arms in robot mode as well. So I guess if you want, you could bring on your other figures to have them operating. I guess you could have them, dare I say, sit on it to operate this horse capture claw. This is just very upsetting. I really don't know what much else to say about it. It's yeah, it's not great. But you know, with a lot of these figures, this is completely ignorable. I've only ever put him in this mode once, and after this review, I do not intend to ever put him in this mode again, but that's what it looks like for posterity's sake. If you want to continue on with the rest of the transformation, we'll just take the tail off again. He's a huge, not really a puzzle former. He's just like a big panel former. You want to bring the little struts down and just click them. These will be the robot mode feet. And then for the bottom section of the horse legs, they just fold up like this, and the hoof becomes the heel, which is kind of cool. I like how his legs work, I will say that. And then, are they in the right orientation? Yes, they are. Okay, then you want to take these panels and just kind of, I guess, loosen them up so they're all kind of out of the way. You want to rotate it so that this section is facing forward. You want to bring, you know, this is on a swivel and a ball joint. It's really hard to kind of remember where all this stuff goes when you're going back to horse mode. This is the one that has to face forward like this, and this is the one that has to face like this. Just so you've got that image there. But for robot mode, it's a lot easier to get them into that position just because you kind of know where they go and you can just move the joints around, whereas nothing really has to like peg into each other or anything like that. But yeah, rotate the body forward like this. His one arm is folded up like this, so you just want to bring it around on that armature and then unfold it at the elbow. The entire back section of the horse, you just want to double hinge up like this, so it becomes this huge sort of shoulder pad. And then for his other arm, you leave the claw out, and that will be the horse head claw is his other arm. And then this section with the soft goods on here, you fold up, and that'll be his robot mode head. He's got this this mangled up ponytail, since it has to like sit clamped between hinges in horse mode. So it's always kind of like, it's a really abused piece. And then with this section here on the back, you pretty much just want to bring it up like this and then kind of double hinge it down however you want. A lot of the images have the horse legs kind of awkwardly sitting up over his shoulders like that. And there you have Mach Kick in his robot mode. And yeah, this figure is just a huge mess. He's just got like all the significant panels of the horse, aside from like the hind legs, are just like awkwardly hanging off of him in robot mode. Like these pieces have nowhere elegant to go. They just kind of like hang off of his back. This section doesn't even like cleanly sit on his back. It's got this huge sort of armature that is just like making it jut out of the back, and then obviously the huge horseback shoulder pad that he's got going on here. Now the tail, it's supposed to be a little axe weapon, so you can have him hold it at this handle with his one hand here, and you know that's kind of a neat use of the tail here. It's obviously a little bit awkward, and like, you know, for an axe, it's a little weird that it doesn't have like more of a handle for him to hold it by. Instead, he's just kind of like holding it as a little knife that's right next to his hand, and it's got the tail hanging out. If you want to store it, you could just plug it back where it was in horse mode. It doesn't stay there perfectly, but you know, to have that hanging off his shoulder doesn't look that much more ridiculous than just the rest of his aesthetic. In terms of articulation, the head here is on a swivel, so you can swivel back and forth. Also for that transformation joint, I guess it can look up a little bit, but it kind of sinks into the body. This one arm with the horse head is on a ball joint here at the shoulder, and then obviously the stock that it had for transformation. It's got the elbow that only goes in and doesn't even bend very far, but whatever. He's got obviously still the same articulation here for the claw for the horse head, and then obviously still retains his gimmick, which I think works better in this mode. It's still silly because, you know, part of the claw is still a horse head, but it's a little bit less gruesome in this mode than it is in either of the other modes. For this arm, shoulder is on a ball joint. It does also have that transformation hinge, so you can have his arm come forward as well. He's got a double ball joint section here at the elbow, so it can swing in like this and up like this. And then I guess, you know, if you're using both those joints, it can kind of make a double hinged elbow, but not in the direction that you'd expect it to. But obviously that also gives him a bicep swivel. He has a weird sort of ball joint section here at the waist that's a little bit loose, but has a good amount of range to it. The cup for the ball joint actually, I think, moves a little bit itself as well. So not a ton, but it gets a little bit extra range out of that. Although I think ultimately that's to the figure's detriment, since it's a really kind of like loose, floppy joint, but whatever. But it also gives them a waist swivel, obviously. For the hips, they're on ball joints, so they can go forward, back a little bit, out to the side. You know, you're kind of having to move these weird panel sections around it anyway. He's got a ball joint at the knee, which gives him a swivel here. And then also, in addition to the ball joint, the socket of the ball joint is also on a hinge, so that gives him a deeper knee bend, which is nice. For the toes, they can tilt up a little bit and tilt down, and then obviously the heels, being the horse mode hooves, have that same swivel there as well. And yeah, it's he's got a good number of joints on him, good articulated joints, but because he's just like such a mess and all these panels just kind of like flop around each other, you can't really get that many like good looking poses out of him, unfortunately, because, you know, he's just a huge mess. But either way, in terms of comparisons, here he is again with Sideswipe, just for a standard deluxe, you know, pretty much average deluxe size, even for nowadays. Sorry about Discord going on in the background. I forgot to mute my computer. Here he is with Korada and Stampy to, you know, see him looking Okay, next to some much better looking figures who are on his team there. Yeah, so, this figure overall is infamously a huge mess. Honestly, one of the biggest parts about him, too, is getting him back into horse mode is such a pain. I don't usually do reverse transformations in these videos, so I'm not going to bother with that, but it always takes a bit of finagling. It's kind of a puzzle. And, once you've done it a number of times, it's pretty easy to kind of figure it out, but it's certainly not intuitive. Oh, he's also got his maximal spark crystal on his hip over here. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think I'm confident in saying this is a bad figure. Like, it's not good. The horse mode, I think, is the best part of it. And the horse, I think, for the most part, looks pretty good. It's a convincing horse mode. The robot mode, if you're willing to accept it for what it is, I think it looks relatively nice with the other Beast Wars Neo Maximals, but it is a huge floppy mess, and it just does have like a bunch of panels just hanging off of it. Also, I don't like the ponytail. It doesn't sit like a normal ponytail would, whereas, the longer horsetail, I think, looks a little bit more accurate to what the tail would actually do at that size, whereas this just kind of like sticks straight off of the back of his head. It gets in the way when you're doing transformation, whereas this one is out of the way since it's external. And then it's like it gets clamped between hinges. Sometimes you've got like little threads just like poking out of the side of the horse, which is kind of gross, but and then the gimmick is it's weird and gross but fun. I like the gimmick. I think it's not too obtrusive, all things considered. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about Mach Kick. Certainly a quite the oddity in the Transformers toy line. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Beast Wars Neo Mach Kick.